So it's exactly 1 o'clock. My name is Faith Samera. I am a Mandela Washington Fellow 2017. I am in the tech field and I'm the founder of Zim Girls Code. And this collaboration of Rwanda and Zimbabwe Fellows was brought to us by the United States Department and Mandela Washington Fellowship. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship is a very amazing platform to join. We'll talk about it later. For those that want to be part of it, the applications are open on the 18th of August. That's for people between the ages of 25 to 35. So we'll talk about it later, the opportunities that you can get from there. So for now, I'm not going to waste any time. Excited as I am, I'm just going straight to handing over to our guest mentor. I'm sure you've seen her profile. We've been talking about her all week. And over to you, Miss Enrica.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here. I love speaking about data and I love teaching people about data. So I'm sure we're going to have a great time together. So let me start with an agenda of what we're going to look at today. Please confirm you can see my screen with the 3 blue blocks.
Yes, I can see your screen. I can see your screen.
Great. So the 3 things we're going to look at today, the first thing is we're going to look at an industry outlook. What is the outlook of data science and data analytics in today's world? What is the importance of it and how it's such a global phenomenon at the moment? The second thing we're going to do is you are going to be inspired to datacate yourself. Datacating yourself is basically making yourself someone who can now use data in whatever area you are in. Thirdly, we're going to look at the most exciting part, which is the practical. We're actually going to do something practical together from the start to the end of a data analytics process.
Excuse me, Enrica.
Yes, Faith?
We have people in the chat that say they cannot hear you clearly.
Okay, let me try and move my mic closer. Is that better?
All right. Innocenti, I hope I pronounced your name right. Said she can hear you now. Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
Please proceed. Sorry to cut you off.
No problem. Please do continue to stop me if you need me to change anything or slow down. So I was saying we're going to look at 3 things. The first is the industry outlook of data science and analytics. The second thing is inspiring you to datacate yourself. That means using data in whatever area you are. And thirdly, we're going to go into the practical. How do we actually do data analytics? So we're going to do that together. Okay, so brief introduction. Who am I? I still consider myself young, a young lady, and I've got a BSc honors in applied mathematics from NUST University in Zimbabwe. I have a couple of data science certifications through IBM, Microsoft, World Quant, etc. I have about 6 years experience in data analysis. I've trained hundreds of individuals on different skills, both digital skills and data skills. I'm also the founder of a program called HM Digital, which offers training and mentorship to particularly young ladies who are interested in getting into the field. And I'm also grateful that I was recently recognized as one of Africa's leading women in data analytics by Tech Build Africa. And I'm also part of the Data Science Zimbabwe community. So just to let you know, you are in good hands and we will have fun together this afternoon. Okay, so just looking at what we said we'll begin with, the data science and analytics landscape. The first is looking at what is happening globally and locally in our African context. Well, the World Economic Forum named data science among the most competitive skills of our age. We are currently in the 4th industrial revolution. And if you have data science skills, you are basically, you basically have a competitive skill. So globally, a lot of people are getting into this industry. And if you can learn even just from today how to do something in analytics or in data science, you are well on your way to being someone who is globally recognized as having a competitive skill. As we know, Africa is often behind in technological advancements. So this is actually an opportunity for us as young ladies to say, the industry is still small in Africa. So those of us who start early will actually then become industry pioneers and industry leaders. And I see myself, for example, as one of these in Zimbabwe. I'm one of the pioneering ladies who are working in data analytics. So you can do the same in your community. There's a lot of opportunity for that. Secondly, I just want to clarify the difference between data analysis or data analytics and data science. If you are going to get into this field, you have to know what you're talking about. Some people just throw around these terms without knowing what they mean. Well, data science is the broader term, the bigger term, and data analysis is under data science. Data analysis is a part of data science. So data science involves using data to either analyze or to build models and algorithms that will help us make better decisions. And data analysis is simply a subset of that. So sometimes you'll hear me saying data science, sometimes you'll hear me saying data analysis. Now you know that data analysis is actually a subset of data science. Some people don't know that. So the minute you know this already, you are setting yourself apart as someone who understands the difference in these terms. Thirdly, this is an exciting part for me. Data can be applied to any area of your life. Your academic life, if you're a student, you can use data to complete a project. You can use data to conduct something you need to do at school. That's in the academic side. In your personal life, you can also use data to make better decisions. For example, I actually have an Excel sheet where I keep my goals and I mark this year, how far did I complete this goal, yes or no? And it's actually in an Excel sheet and it helps me in my personal life. Then in the corporate world, if you're working one day for a corporate institution, you can use data there to make better decisions for the company. And lastly, in your community, you can find a problem that exists in your community and actually use data to solve that problem. So data really can be applied to any area of your life. And I like the quote that says, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. Data really validates what you are trying to say. Moving on to disruption. The world is moving very fast. If you think back 10 years ago, did you have a phone? Some of us didn't have a phone 10 years ago because we were still too young. If you did have a phone, I'm sure you can testify that it's not the same phone you're using today. The type of phones we are using are changing. So that just shows you technology is moving. The future of careers is different. If you want to be a teacher, if you cannot use data, if you cannot use technology, you will be a teacher who is not progressing. So whatever profession you want to get into, make yourself future ready by using data. If we look at products that we have self-service machines. If you go to just next door here in South Africa, if you go to the airport, you can now check in using a machine without even talking to a person. So again, this just shows you where we are going in terms of data. We're moving towards artificial intelligence where we have self-driving cars, etc. We're moving towards big data. Big data is basically data that is big in volume and in the speed in which it's collected, and it's in its variety, its different sources. We're also moving to the cloud. You can now keep all your documents in Google Drive, for example, and Google Drive Online actually keeps all your documents. So that's the cloud. And we're also moving towards 5G internet, which is quick internet. And lastly, I just want to mention powerhouses of companies like YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, and LinkedIn that are using data, and they are clearly moving faster than any other company. So I think it's a no-brainer. Disruption is with us, and we have to be future ready by using data. Okay, I've been talking for a long time, so now it's time to get to know you guys a little better. I'd like us to do a small little exercise before we get into our practical. Those of us who are able, if you're able to go onto the internet right now, if you're not able, no problem. But if you're able, just go to www.menti.com and use the code 89282832, the one on your screen. And I'd like you to answer 2 questions for me there, and we will actually see the results come in live, and we can see the power of data. So this is an exercise for me to get to know you a little bit, and we'll actually see the results coming in live. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that while I pull up the results. Okay, so I'm trying to ask you 2 questions. The first question is, have you worked with data before? So I'd like to know amongst us, who of us have worked with data? And I can see some answers coming in. Let's have a few more answers coming in. So far, most of us who have answered, which is only 4 of us, have worked with data before. Maybe I'll wait a little bit before I go to the next question, just to see, have you worked with data before? And I'm sure you can see that this is the power of data. We are able to quickly see or make a decision based on a result we are seeing by collecting real-time data. So this is real-time data we're collecting. And so far, 75, 80% of us have worked with data before. That's exciting. 15% of us have not. Okay, great. I'm going to move on to the second and last question, which is, what field are you in? Now, I know most of us are students. That's okay. You can just share what you're studying. That's still a field or a career. So I'd like to know the different areas represented here today. What field are you in, or what are you studying? We've got someone in education, someone in marketing, engineering, electrical, mechanical. Great, great, great. We have someone from applied mathematics, great. Academics, mathematics. Someone in networking, someone in Internet of Things, statistics. Wow, we have a mixed bag today. Software engineering, software development, business admin. Okay, great. You can keep the results coming in, and I'll have a look at these. It's just good to know we have a different variety of people, and this is the power of data. You can apply data in all of these industries. So thank you. Some people are graduates still. Someone is in insurance. Great, great, great. So without wasting any more of your time, I'm going to continue as we move closer towards the practical. Well, we're about to get into the practical. Just give me a second. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the power of data and what it can do in us making decisions, either at school or at work, wherever we are. So if you can see this slide that's there now, we have a paragraph that's written on the left, and it's basically describing the performance of a business. It's saying from January 2020 to date, We have serviced 50 clients, etc., etc. The same thing that is written in that paragraph is presented on the right side, but this time using data. I'm sure you'll agree with me that the side with data is the easiest one to digest, because you can easily see, okay, 2019, there were 56 customers. 2020, there were 50 customers. And this is a 17% decrease year on year. YOY means year on year. And we can then see the split there in the different industries. So we're saying the same thing, but using data. So I'm sure this slide shows you that using data is so much better. Now, for those of you who want to pursue data, even after today's session, these are some of the resources I use and some of the resources you can use to continue to learn and practice your data skills and even learn new courses. There's Kaggle, kaggle.com. If you want to practice, if you want to get data sets, Kaggle is the best resource. Secondly, YouTube. I am a professional data person, but I can't tell you, sometimes I still YouTube how to do things because I need to watch a video to learn something. So don't shy away from YouTube. Thirdly, LinkedIn. There are a lot of data people on LinkedIn, and you can be part of groups or learn from professionals who are on LinkedIn. And fourthly, I've listed some of the sites you can use if you want to take a. So for those of you who want to go further than today, these are some of the resources you can use. Okay, let's move into getting towards the practical. Any data science or data analytics project you undertake, you have to take these steps. The first is the requirement. What are you trying to do? So if it's, let's say, an academic research, your requirement is that you want to conduct a research on such and such. So you have to know your requirements before you start your process. Secondly is your data extraction. You need to actually find the data or get the data for you to work with. And we use tools like SQL, Excel, or Python. Today, we're going to be using Python. It's one of the tools. Thirdly, you have to prepare your data. Data comes in different forms and formats, but you have to prepare it in such a way that you are making it relevant to what you are trying to solve. Again, for data prep, we use tools like Excel and Python. Today, we will use Python. Next, we explore our data. Exploring your data is getting to know your data, what is in your data. And we do this once again with Excel and Python. Today, we will use Python. Then after that, you can do two things. If you choose to visualize your data, that is data analytics. If you choose to model your data, that is data science. You're now building a model using the data you have prepared and explored. In today's case, we're going to look at the data visualization part. And you can use tools like PowerBI, Click, or Tableau. We are going to use PowerBI. Lastly, you need to be able to present what you have found in your data to different stakeholders, whether it's your teacher, your boss at work, your community. So you also need to learn how to present your findings. So this is the entire data science process. And what we're going to do in the practicals, we're going to actually go through these steps. So without wasting time, I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk. You want to get your hands dirty. We are now going to dig into the data. So for those of us who would like to follow along, you can actually follow along. There are two ways of doing it. Let me share my screen and show you the different ways we can actually conduct this practical. Give me a second. All right. So for those of us, there are two ways. If you were able to download Anaconda and Power BI, you will be using them on your desktop. If you were not able to download, no problem. We will be using the cloud. So I will start with those of us who did not manage to download. Sorry, I'm just trying to reshare my screen. Okay. Right. So if you did not manage to download Anaconda or Power BI, you are simply going to open any internet browser, and we're going to start with our Python. You're going to go to this URL. Let me actually type it in the chat. I think that will be easier. collab.research.com. Typing it in the chat now. Okay, so if you did not download Anaconda and you want to work online, simply type in or copy and paste that URL into your web browser. Okay, when you've copied in the URL and you click on enter, it takes you to something that looks like this. And you are going to click on new notebook. New notebook. And this will create a notebook for you. Okay, and this is where we are going to be coding in Python. So I'm going to hold here. For those of us who typed in the URL and have opened the notebook, you can stop there. For those of us who downloaded Anaconda, you simply open your Anaconda, which I'm doing now. Just waiting for it to load, also while giving you time to set up on your side for those of you who want to follow. Once your Anaconda is open, you have all these environments. We are going to work with Jupyter Notebook. So you just come to Jupyter Notebook and we click on launch. And you get to a page like this. And then you click on new Python, and that will open a new Python notebook for you. So if you have Anaconda, your environment will look like this. If you're using online, your environment will look like this, but we're basically doing the same thing, okay? So we are now actually going to start our coding. So the first thing you have to do when you are working with Python is you have to import the libraries you are going to work with. So in this case, for working with data, there's a library called pandas. So we are going to type the words import pandas as PD. Okay, import pandas by simply clicking this play button, or you can press Control Enter on your computer and it will run the line of code. If you are working from Anaconda, it's the same thing. You are typing import pandas as PD, Control Enter, it runs the code. Okay, so I hope we are all following together so far. Okay, so I'm just going to use a notebook I had created before, but you can follow in your new notebook. So if we are going together, the first thing you have done is you have imported pandas. Pandas is a library that helps us work with data sets in Python, and that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, the second thing we are doing is there's a website called Our World in Data. And for this exercise, we are going to import data from that website. So I'm just going to type this URL in the chat. So far, I hope we are following together. Okay, great. So now we are going to define a URL. So we're going to say URL. URL is basically a link online. And this is the link where we get this data online, okay? So we're going to say URL is equal to and type in the link, which I have pasted in the chat function. And we are going to run this code. So by me saying URL is equal to this, I am defining a URL. We could actually just call it A, you can call it B. It's just a name for the link where your data is. I decided to call it URL, but you can call it A or B if you want. And we are going to run that code. So you can see there's a play button here that is loading. Once it runs, you will see a green tick on the side to show us that it has run. The third thing we are going to do is we now want to save this link of data as a data set in Python. To do that, we now use our pandas library. So if I had said import pandas and I had not put as PD, if I just put import pandas like this, I would now have to type the whole word pandas here. But because we said import pandas as PD, I can now use the shortcut PD whenever I want to use the pandas library. So in the pandas library, there is a keyword called read_CSV, which allows us to read the CSV file from the link as a data set in pandas. So again, you can name it A, you can name it B, you can name it data, whatever name you want to give it. I usually use DF, which stands for data frame. So DF is equal to pd.read_CSV, open bracket. We're now putting in this URL we defined in our brackets, close brackets, and we run that. Okay, I had not rerun this code. So make sure you run the code that says import pandas as, and then run your code again. You can press Control Enter to run a code or the play button. So now we have a data frame or a data set called DF, and we can now finally get our hands dirty and play with the data. How do we view the first few rows of our data? We use df.head. I'm just going to edit this. Okay, so df.head, open and close brackets, will show you the first few rows of your data. So I can now see that this data is a COVID data set with a country code, continent, location, date, number of COVID cases, number of new cases, number of deaths, etc., etc., etc. So if you are following along, I hope we are still together. How do we view the first few rows of our data? We type the name of our data set. In my case, I've named it DF. You can name it whatever you want. .head. That will show you the first few rows of your data. If you want to view the last rows of your data, we change head to tail, and that will show us the end of our data set. So now we can see these are the last few rows of our data. It shows 5 rows by default, but if you put in a number, let's say 7 or 10 in the brackets, it shows you 10 rows. So if you wanted to see the last 20 rows, you would write df.tail and put in 20, and it will show you the last 20 rows. So remember to run my code. I'm pressing Control Enter as a shortcut in case you are wondering what I'm doing. Otherwise, you can just click on the play button. Okay, so now we have a rough idea of what our data set looks like because we have viewed the first and the last rows of our data set. We now move on to how do I drop a column? So let's say in my data set, I've seen, okay, I'm going to change this tail to 5 so that it doesn't take so much space. Control Enter. Let's say we look and see there's a column in there that we don't really need for our analysis. For example, this column called new cases smoothed. Let's say, for example, I don't know what it means, so I'm not going to use this. You can highlight the column, copy it, and then write the code df.drop. So a new data set, df, which is equal to the old data set dot drop. Dot drop means we are dropping a column, and then you have to open brackets, use a square bracket and the apostrophes, and then put in your column name. Axis 1 means we are deleting the whole column. If we put axis equals to 0, that's how you delete a row. But in this case, we're deleting a column, so axis is 1. So let me say that again. We've got df is equal to df.drop, open bracket, square bracket, name of the column you want to drop, close your square bracket, comma, axis is equal to 1. And then we are going to put df.head. So I am going to run this code. And I'm going to check. If we look here, we had this column called, sorry, this one, new cases smooth. When I look at my new data frame, this column is no longer there, right? So we have deleted this column. So anytime you want to delete a column, that's how you delete a column. You name your data set equals to df.drop, put in your column name, axis is 1, and you have deleted your column. If you wanted to delete more than one column, you'd simply put comma and put in the name of your second column as an example. But in this case, we just want to delete 1. Okay? Then we also have a function called dtypes. So if we type df.dtypes and run that code, it tells us the data types of each of our columns. So we have data types the same way you would have text or number. In Python, you have object or float. So in this case, object is my text. So all my columns where it's text, for example, continent is Asia. Asia is text, right? So you'll see that continent data type is an object. And float is simply a number. So all these other columns where there are numbers, e.g., number of new cases, number of deaths, these are all float data types. So this is how you check the data types of your columns. Next, how do you rename a column? Well, we use df.rename. So df.rename, open your brackets, columns is equal to, curly brackets, you put in the old name, semicolon, the new name. So in this case, I had a continent with a small c, and I want to change it to continent with a capital C. I also have location with the small l. I want to change it to location, capital L. This is the code I would use. In place equals true basically means I am replacing my data set with this new thing that I have put in. So in this case, we're changing the continent and the location to have capital C and capital L. And we put df.head to check that our code has done what it was supposed to do. And we run that. So if we check our old data set, it had a small c on the name of the continent column and a small l on location. Now, when we look at the new one, it has a capital C and a capital L. So this is how we rename columns. So let's say you wanted to call this column deaths instead of total deaths. You would use df.rename and rename it that way. I hope we're still following together. The next thing is we can actually perform numerical operations like sum or average for the columns where we have numbers. So let's say new cases, for example, for new COVID cases, we want to know total. We want Python to add up all these numbers to give us the total number. We would use print for it to print out the number, df dot the name of your column dot sum and brackets. So if I run that code, it shows me that the new cases are, how many digits do we have here? 660 million new cases from this worldwide COVID data set. If we wanted to find the average number of cases, we would change this sum from sum to average and run that. Sorry, I think we use mean instead of average. There we go. Sorry, we don't use average, we use mean. And this shows us that the mean or the average number of cases is 6,000 cases on average. But if you want the sum, which is the total cases, we put in the sum. Okay, we can also count. So it's the same code as above, but if we use count, it will count how many rows we have in that particular column. So if we say new cases.count, it shows us how many rows we have. And if we put n unique, it gives us the unique numbers. So as an example, if I say, if I have the continent and I want to count the continents that are here, if I use count, it will give me the number of rows. But if I use n unique, it will give me only the 6 continents because it's taking the unique continents from the whole list that is available. Then we also have a function called df.shape. This tells us how many rows and how many columns we have in our data set. So we can see that we have 110,000 rows and 61 columns. So this is very helpful to see if you have a data set and you want to know how big it is, how many rows, how many columns. We simply say df.shape and it shows us our number of rows and our number of columns. We can also use df.describe. And if I run that, it shows us some statistics of our numerical columns. So it will show me that for my total cases, this is the mean number of total cases. This is the minimum. This is the maximum. So you can check a few statistics using df.describe. Okay, I'm going to skip through this and now go to if we wanted to extract from this worldwide data set. We only want to extract Rwanda and Zimbabwe cases. This is what we do. Let me actually create a new cell. So to create a new cell, we hit this button, plus code, and we now have an empty cell. So we are going to create a new data set. Let me call it df2 is equal to our old df, square bracket, and normal bracket, df, and then we want to put a column name. So we want to say where the location remember to put your apostrophes. Where your location is Rwanda. So after the square brackets, you have to use 2 equal signs and apostrophes to say Rwanda. This will give us a data set where the country is Rwanda only. So if I run this, let me do that now, and create a new cell and say df2.head, we now have a data set with Rwanda COVID cases only. If I wanted Rwanda and Zimbabwe, I'm going to say plus, put my plus sign inside the square bracket. So I'm going to say plus, and I'm going to copy and paste this section where it said Rwanda, but this time when I copy and paste it, I'm going to change Rwanda to Zimbabwe. This will give us the cases from Rwanda and Zimbabwe. So I'm going to run that, and I'm going to call this df3. I think I have an error somewhere. Let's see. Okay, let me see if I run this one. I'm getting an error. Oh, okay. This is a good lesson for us. Remember, we changed our column of location from small l to capital L. So Python is giving me this error because it no longer recognizes location with a small l. So with Python, when you get an error, the best thing to do is to look at your last line on the error and see what it says to help you. So it says key error location. So I immediately remembered, oh, we changed our location. So if you're ever facing an error in Python, you look at the last line there, and it will tell you why it's giving you an error, and you can then fix whatever you had written. So I am going to change my small l to a capital L here. And this time it should work. Great, and it worked. So this data set, DF5, is now a data set containing only COVID cases from Zimbabwe and Rwanda. The last thing we want to do in Python is to now save the data set so we can actually visualize it in PowerBI. So we use this code called df.to_CSV and put in the name of what you want your new data set to be called. So remember, we created a data set df5. So you say df5.to_CSV, open bracket. I want to call it Zimbabwe Rwanda data. Remember to say .csv because we're saving the file in the format of a CSV, which is a comma-separated value file. And this is best practice for working with data. You can either save as CSV or even as XXL, it will be XSLX. Some of these things you won't learn in one day, so you can actually Google. As you're trying to practice, you can go to Google and say, how do I save as Excel? How do I save as CSV? But in this case, we're saving as a CSV. So I'm going to run the code df5 to CSV with the name there. And it has given me a tick, so it has saved my data. Where do I find the data? You come to Files here, and I can see that my Zimbabwe data file has been saved. So I click on these 3 dots and I click on download because I now want to download this data set and use it. So I can select where I want to save my file. I'll just use the desktop. So here I am, and I click on save, and now the file is saved to my desktop. Now for the exciting part, which I love, we are going to use a tool called PowerBI to actually visualize our data. There are 2 ways of using PowerBI. I am going to type this URL in the chat. Okay, so if you want to work online, you click on the link that I have just shared. The downside with Power BI is you have to have either a work or a school address on Microsoft to be able to use it, but you can create that. So for those of us who didn't manage to create a Power BI account, we don't have time to create an account together right now, so you can do it later. But basically you click on sign in here and you sign into your account or create a new one if it's your first time. And for those of us who managed to download Power BI, you open Power BI in your computer and you click on Get Data, which is here, to now import the data that we saved. To use this version for now, I'm going to click on Get Data. And I have a blank page here where I can import my data from the CSV. So remember, it was a folder on my desktop. So you click on All, Folder, Connect, and it will allow me to browse where I saved that file. So I saved it in my desktop. So you click on OK. And it will ask you to pick the file. So in this case, I want this Zim Rwanda file. So I select it.
Enrica, can you share your screen?
See what I did.
Enrica.
Oh, you're not seeing my screen?
Yes.
Apologies. Let me start that again. From which stage? From the Power BI stage?
Yes.
Okay. Apologies for that. So if you open your Power BI, I'll start again, you get a blank page like this. Can you now see my screen which says Add Data?
Yes, yes.
Great, thank you so much. So we are going to add data to our report, and you can either click Import Data from Excel, or you can click Get Data from another source, or you can click Get Data at the top. So Power BI has different ways of getting data. I'm going to go with this one, but you could actually click Import, or you could click Get from another source. So once you click on Get Data, it's loading. Right. We want to get data from a file. So if it's an Excel file, we use this Excel option. For our case, remember, it was a CSV file. So I'm going to select CSV here and click on Connect. And I am going to go to my desktop because that's where I saved the file. And you select your file and click on Open. So now Power BI will show you what your data looks like. If you remember, we extracted data from Rwanda and Burundi. So we are simply going to click on Load for Power BI to load our data. Okay. I'm just waiting for it to complete loading my data. Okay, if I come to the far right, this side, we can now see that our data was loaded because it says Zim Rwanda data. Remember, that's the name of our file. So if I click this arrow, it shows me all the columns that are in my data set. So if I select, let's select continent and location, which we had worked with in Python. So I'm going to select continent. And I'm going to select location. It gives me the data on this side. It's just loading. So because it has picked up that the location is a country, it's showing us a map. And if you want to visualize using a map, you can do that. But in our case, let's say we don't want to use a map, we want to use a table. you come to these options of visualizations here, and we select table, and it now gives us. So if you remember, we only had Rwanda and Zimbabwe, and they're both in Africa. We can now say, okay, how many new cases for COVID did we have? So I'm going to click on new cases, and we can see that, okay, in Rwanda we had 80,000, and in Zimbabwe 121,000, and the total is 200,000. So we can keep this here, and you can drag and drop your visualization to wherever you want it. For dashboards, what I usually like to do is to actually give a layout, so we can click on insert text box, and we can actually say COVID dashboard. So this is us creating a dashboard, and you can do this for whatever data you are using. I'm going to highlight it and increase the font by clicking here. So you simply highlight your text, click on font, and I'm going to choose 36, and I'm going to use this to center it, and I'm going to change the color of the text to maybe red. Okay, so now we have a dashboard title. Then you can actually use other components of visualization. So for example, let's use a card. So this card here, you drag and drop it onto your canvas. I think it's loading. There we go. And I'm going to put it at the top here. And what I want to do is to count the total COVID cases. So I'm going to select new cases, and it will give me that we have 202,000 new cases. I'm now going to copy and paste this visual so that we separate Zimbabwe from Rwanda. So I'm going to paste and move this here. Now we want to count the cases only where the country is Rwanda. So we come to here where it says filter, and we're going to drag and drop our country as a filter. So I think the country was called location. I'm going to drag and drop it into this box here where it says filter, and I'm going to select Rwanda, and it will give me 81,000 cases. Okay, I think I made these filters relevant for the whole page. I need to change it for the visual. Okay, apologies. So I put it in the second box instead of the first box. This first box is where we need to drag the filter. So I'm going to redo that, drag location into this box and select Rwanda. Then I'm going to copy and paste again, but this time we want for Zimbabwe. So I'm going to do this, and in my filter, I'm going to remove Rwanda and add Zimbabwe. So we can already see here we have 200,000 cases in total. 81,000 are from Rwanda, 121,000 are from Zimbabwe, and we can actually begin building different insights from this data. For example, we could check the number of deaths. We could put a line graph of the deaths dependent on the day. So what I'm going to do at this stage, because I'm seeing that we are running out of time, is I'm going to show you examples of dashboards that I've created so that you can actually go and create your own as well. So I'm just opening a dashboard now, which shows COVID cases in Zimbabwe. And I just want to show you how you can actually use Power BI to do exactly what you want with the data you have. Okay, so in this case, This was a dashboard I trained someone to do, and they actually did it, not me actually. I taught them and they did it by themselves after a session just like this one. And it's basically COVID cases in Zimbabwe. You can insert an image. So you just go to insert image here and put in an image from your computer. And this person then went ahead to do a different type of graph here, which had the cases by month. So I can actually click on April and it will filter the whole dashboard and change all the statistics to include statistics for April only. If I put March, it will change all the statistics on the dashboard and put statistics for March only. So this is an example of a completed dashboard. And you can actually create this for yourself, either at work, at school, if you're conducting a research. And if you have the paid version of Power BI, you can actually then access your visualization. So Power BI is a great tool to have. And I think I will stop here for any questions. I hope we've been following. I know the time was short, so I was trying to rush, but I hope you did manage to follow.